Welcome back to We Are BU, episode number 2, a podcast brought to you by Bethel University Athletics and Eyes Up Mindset. I'm John Shirkey here with my co-host, my friend, my fellow Bethel alum, Jamie Wagner. Jamie, good to see you.
You as well, man. What a cool opportunity we get today to highlight the golf team, the golf programs at Bethel University, doing some really cool things, inspired by some awesome leaders. And it was a blast to get to have these conversations and to learn and see why it's pretty good right now and why it's going to continue to get better.
A packed episode for sure. We're going to kick it off with men's head golf coach Nick COCALIS. Awesome story. Been there a few years, just brings really good stuff, and really cool perspective on, he hasn't been a long time Bethel guy, but man, just talking to him, he's all in and he's just pours from every part of his being. So that was a cool conversation. And then we also have a Hall of Fame athlete, Trent Anderson, kind of a different perspective. He kind of checks a lot of boxes. I'd said that in the interview, but.
Well, he's the exact opposite. He's been like tried and true Bethel for a long time, going back to the 80s. And like, he's done it from every perspective, right? Hall of Fame athlete, coach on the football team, is the current head girls golf coach, also has athletes, is a parent of athletes there. And he talks about how cool that's been. Also, like, just a really broad perspective on what makes the Bethel athletic experience really cool, because he's been there at all three facets in some ways. And then, to get to talk to Anna and talk to her about her experience being the first ever MIAC champ in program history. Just a really, really grateful to have had these conversations, because it grew us today. And I hope it grows the listeners as well. And we are excited to continue to get to have these types of conversations that challenge us to think about how we're walking, how we're doing our job in our life, but also to see and highlight what's going on at BU.
Here we go. We are now joined by men's golf coach Nick COCALIS. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is crazy because we've done this before, but the recording got a little screwy. So we are here doing this all over again. And I tell you what, I'm actually excited to get this chance to do it again. Right.
Yeah,
so
me too. Maybe I'll learn something.
Well, I will tell you, Coach, your background is better this time. Although the one last time with the BU athletics is awesome, but I love that you're rocking you got the golf clubs in the office there, the whole thing.
Memories of the past. Got to feel like a little golf office, though. Looks good.
So, Coach,
go ahead, John.
Coach, give us a little background of how you got to Bethel, a little bit about your journey in terms of, obviously, you played some college golf at a high level, took some time off, and then you went back and played some pro golf, and then now you end up at Bethel University as the men's coach with no previous coaching experience. Tell us about that journey. There's a lot in there, but I can't wait to hear your version of it.
It was a little non-traditional journey for sure, but an amazing one. That's what God does in our lives. And a quick correction, because it's awesome. I did not play golf at a high level. I played golf at a very low level. I went to a high level school. I just didn't play much. So, but that's kind of part of my story, honestly. I grew up wanting to play on the PGA Tour. Golf was my life. I was like so many young kids that say, hey, I want to go to college to play golf at the D1 level. I want to play professional. Like, that is everything I could ever want in life. And then, the only problem was I wasn't very good in college. A fun fact about myself, I got cut from 2 college golf teams, which is pretty hard to do. So I'm pretty impressed by that myself. And I'm sure you guys are too, but went to college to play golf, played at a D3 school out in North Carolina, got cut out there, transferred back to Marquette as an invited walk-on. And my senior year of college got cut from that program too. So obviously it was me. And that started this journey in my life that was, holy cow, transformational. It was one of those moments that, you think was the worst moment in your life, walking back from your coach's office to your dorm room, thinking it's the worst day of my life. But all of a sudden, God started to work on my heart in some deep, deep waves of just kind of drawing me into what my purpose, what my calling, what he was doing, maybe that was way bigger than the game of golf. And long story short, I ended up spending the next 10 years after college working in full-time ministry in the world of short-term missions, community development, fell in love with Jesus, fell in love with my wife, and honestly, little Freudian slip there, like fell in love with my life, a life after Christ, a life fully surrendered to Christ. I didn't know what that felt like. And that dream was way, way, way bigger than golf. And those were probably the best 10 years of my life. But then in kind of a cool, only God-like story, when I was 31 years old, just developed a deep passion and vision from God to try to give golf a run as a professional and kind of live that dream out. And so my wife and I sold our house and sold our car, sold our boat, and went down to Scottsdale, Arizona, played the mini tours for a while, eventually played on the PGA Latin Tour, and was able to live that dream out for 3 years, which is an incredible time in life for us. And sure enough, brought both those worlds back together when I was done playing up here at Bethel. Just the awesome ministry of being with these young men at an awesome university, and being able to hopefully teach them a thing or two about golf as well.
So this moment that brings you at 31 to some sort of realization that maybe I should chase that. Have a wife, I have a house, I have some car, whatever. Like, we have some of the material possessions that say we're on our way. You have a ministry that's doing well, and God upends it and says, maybe not. Maybe this. Can you walk us through that a little bit? Because you said he showed you something, and how did you get there?
Yeah, it was a specific moment, clear as day for me. I was at a conference, a youth ministry conference. There were a couple thousand youth pastors, senior leadership, and the speaker that was giving the message said, "Hey, I want everyone in the room to stand up." I was at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, a couple thousand of us. Said, "Take out your cell phone and open up your calendar." He said, "You can sit down tonight, right now, if there's something that you've put on your calendar that you cannot do without God showing up in a miraculous way." And of course, you could have heard a pin drop in the stadium, and no one sat down, and including myself, of course. And the speaker went on to say, that's the problem in ministry today. That's the problem in churches today. We are so programmed. We're so skilled. We're so gifted, but we do not rely on the Holy Spirit, on Jesus Christ, to show up and do something miraculous in our life. And so he challenged us. He said, put something on your calendar that you cannot do. Put something on your calendar that you genuinely know that you can't do on your own strength, and watch God show up. And a couple nights later, having dinner with my wife, Melanie, who's a Bethel grad, hockey player here. Man, so amazing, so beautiful. And she just said, "Hey, what is it for you?" And I always said, I wasn't good enough to play golf. I can't do that. I showed that I couldn't do that. And she said, let's go give it a run. And it was a pretty incredible 3-year journey for us.
So, Coach, does that happen over and over? I mean, obviously you have that experience one time, but now what? Now you did that thing and you chased that dream, right? At 31, you give up everything to go be a professional golfer, and you learn a lot about yourself along the way. But what about now? Like, I'm asking that mostly as a rhetorical because of me too. Like, that challenges me to say, hey, just because we did it once doesn't mean we stop doing it, right? Okay, yep, right. I did it one time, so now I'm good. Wash my hands of it. We're good, right? No, we have to keep showing up, keep doing that, keep putting ourselves in that position where we ask God and the Holy Spirit to show up and guide us and challenge us to grow and get better. Not really a question in there, sorry, but.
Well, a little prompting from the Spirit. My youth pastor had this expression. He said, "Don't ever let your testimony get expired." And I always love that. I think kind of the traditional thing is you talk to someone and again, I'm looking at myself in the mirror. I'm not calling anyone else out, but you say, "Hey, tell me about your faith story." And you're talking to a 45, 50-year-old man that says, "Oh, in 8th grade, I, X, Y, Z, and that's their testimony," which is great. I mean, that's that moment that God worked in your heart and started this journey. But I want to hear what happened this morning. Tell me about your interaction with the living God this morning in your Devo. Tell me about last weekend when God prompted you to do something crazy and you met someone or shared the word or were poured into, and what is that transformation? God is a living God. And that's that thing. We're called to this relationship with Jesus that is a day in, day out thing. When I say, hey, John, hey, Jamie, tell me your story, tell me your testimony. And I hope you tell me a story from last weekend, not 8th grade. And so yeah, this time in life where we chased this dream, had this big moment in this auditorium and this stage that called us to go play professional golf. Yeah, that's a cool story, but shame on me if I don't have one from 2 weeks ago with our guys, what God's doing in our lives now. So yeah, it's a chase. You got to stay in the fight and keep running after it.
Man, I love that phrasing. Obviously, we're football players, and the stay in the fight thing is a Coach Jayism from, the beginning of time, probably, but we need to stay in the fight. And John kind of said it, your background's not coaching, your background is in ministry. Your background is in something else other than coaching. Running to the fight of coaching is really cool because the challenge, as coaches, we know the challenge to bring what Bethel does so well, this balance of our faith life being the foundation of who we are and what we do, and also chasing elite athletics, elite performance on course, is really hard. And then you're going to lead young men to do that. What kind of brought you to this situation where you have that opportunity to grow people in their faith, in their game, and to tie it together in this really cool way?
You said it, it's tying it together. So it has these two sides to it completely. The one side is understanding our foundation and our identity. We use this expression on our golf team that says that we always say we want golf to be in the right place in our life. And I think that's the foundation of it. And I feel really comfortable of it, not because I'm some expert in it, because I've lived it. Just like you guys, we've gone through this experience where I have had golf in the wrong place in my life. I've had girls in the wrong place in my life. I've had fun in the wrong place in my life, success in the wrong place in my life. But if you can get to that foundation where you're completely at peace with your identity in Christ and who you are as a young man growing up and understanding who God wants you to be, well, amen. That gives you a lot of freedom then to grow in life and on the golf course. And so that's our foundation on the faith side. And that's just my heart, is just share my experience in that journey with these young men, because I went through it and I didn't do it well in college. And now I get to share that journey with them. And hopefully they can learn from some of the mistakes I made and chase Christ in that. And then, combine that with what I've learned on the golf course. And, I make no mistake about it. Like I wasn't a super high level caliber player as a professional, but I got to be around guys that were. And so I was playing and practicing day in, day out with guys that are playing in the Masters, winning PGA Tour tournaments, or in the Ryder Cup. Like those are the guys I rubbed shoulders with and learned how they practiced, learned how they prepared, how they took care of their bodies, their game plan, how they worked their way around a golf course. Awesome. Well, I'm super, super thankful to be able to take some of that experience and then, bring it into guys that are hopefully even more talented than I was and see what they can do with it. And to do that day in, day out on the grass with these young men. Oh my gosh, what a blessing. We love doing it every day. And we chase both of those with equal hearts.
So Coach, I gotta stop you, because as Jamie and I are both amateur golfers and you keep saying you're not that good. And I just need you to know that's relative. It is very relative. And if you're out there listening and you play golf, just take it with a grain of salt. This dude can play golf, no question about it. Anyway, moving on. Coach, you talk about putting golf in the right spot, and it wasn't there for you at a time, and you had all these other things, maybe ahead of your faith. And so what sorts of things do you guys do in your program to help your players kind of put that and rearrange those things in their life and make sure they are in an order that is the healthiest for them in terms of their walk with Christ, their golf, and overall wellness? How do you do that, practically?
Well, we try to lay a foundation of structure, and I think that's a great discipline in life. And so our foundation looks like, a team Bible study and dinner every Tuesday night where we're getting in the Word of God. We're listening to what God has to say, and that's our foundation. Setting up one-on-ones, and we have a really cool thing in our program where we have what we call putting and prayer partners. So again, bringing those two worlds together. They got a putting partner that they go through all their putting drills with every single day when we practice, but that partner is also a prayer partner, an accountability partner for them. So they get to walk through their 4 years of college with one man in their life that can hold them up and just build them up as a man of God. And so that's the foundation. We have some things like that. We also have it with our alumni, which is awesome too. We have prayer and support alumni partners. And so we give them that foundation, that base. But then honestly, it's just the good stuff. It's the good juice of day in, day out interaction of saying, hey, let's keep this on the top of our minds. Let's be prayerful for each other. Let's have conversations. Let's have real conversations, right? If we're out on the range and practice, like, let's really ask each other tough questions and use this time. We get whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours with each other each day. It's crazy. The game of golf provides such a canvas and such a platform to get to know the lives of those that you're playing with. We say, hey, let's make the most of it. And then we let that happen naturally about just digging into each other's lives, trying to sharpen each other and build each other up.
So I'm curious about how that, again, this balance thing keeps coming back to me, because I know for myself, John says we're amateur golfers. Again, this is relative. He is a much better amateur golfer than I am. Right. And so when we go out on the course together, I'm comparing, right? I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, I'm angry at times, where I'm placing the results or the outcomes of my performance in just way the wrong spot, and golf, I think is a game that magnifies that in a way, because it's not, you get another play 7 seconds later, you get another, they inbound the ball and you're taking it up the court. Like, it is a game where you ruminate and think a lot. How do you teach, how did that work for you to be present, to be in? I just think if you have that thing rightly ordered, right, if you have your faith in place, what an amazing gift it is to your golf game. And so it's like,
yeah. Let me share just a couple quick stories with you. Number one, I'll tell you the message I gave our team before the MIAC championships this last year. The night before, we're talking about nerves, talking about preparation. And I said, listen, guys, I want you to think about two things. Number one, this is the biggest tournament of your year. And we want to treat it that way and get excited about it and prepare for it. But number two, I want to tell you a quick story that 10 years ago, I was sitting in a small village in Haiti after an earthquake rocked their country. And I was sitting with about 30 kids at an orphanage and just hearing what they talk about and listening with them. And we tried to have a conversation about golf. And not only did they not know about the MIAC championship, they had no idea what a golf course looked like. And quite frankly, there's about, quite a few million people that could care less that you're playing in the MIAC championship. And they're worried about putting food on their table or their kids' health or so many other things. And so we need to have that perspective. Golf's a game. We get to go out and play it. We want to compete with excellence because we think that's God honoring, but we want to keep golf in the right place. There are a lot of people in this world that have no idea you have a tee time tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and so you need to have that perspective a little bit. And then there's some practical things too. There's a young man in our team I've been so proud of. He's growing in his relationship with the Lord, and golf was getting a little bit in the wrong place with him the last couple of years. And he wrote himself a prayer, and he keeps it in his yardage book in his back pocket. And that's one of the memories I'll always have coaching golf. I love that. I love guys that aren't doing it perfect, but are grinding and trying to let God and the Holy Spirit in their life. And so that there you see your faith interacting with an actual something that's actually affecting your golf game, to say, hey, when the temperature gauge starts running, when you start running a little hot, when that grip starts getting a little tight, hey, I'm actually going to take a minute. I'm going to open up my yardage book. I'm not looking at a pin placement. I'm looking at a prayer that I wrote to my Heavenly Father that's going to give me the calm and the peace and settle those nerves and center myself on the real stuff. And then I'm going to get really darn excited to go hit a golf shot. And that's what we try to do. Take your time, find your peace, find your base, find golf to have that place in your life, and then get really excited to go hit a golf shot. And I think that's going to be a recipe for success.
Boy, Coach, on to the less important, but also important stuff. Okay. Finished 6th at the MIAC championships this year, not where you necessarily wanted to be.
Yeah. My pregame speech didn't work. So maybe we need to edit that out, but that's
well, no. I wasn't, man, both times got me on this. I was trying to frame it in a better way this time, but no, it isn't where you want to be, because we know that Bethel Athletics right now is on a trajectory to compete at the highest level in all sports. And men's golf is no different. When I was there in 2003 to 2007, I thought I could play. Now there's no chance that I'm good enough to play, which is awesome. I'm so proud of the fact that we are continuing as a department, as a school, to say, hey, we're going to prioritize our faith and our relationship with God and with each other. And then we're going to go compete like crazy. So tell us a little bit about kind of current status and where you're headed in the future here.
Yeah, we're thrilled about our program. We built on an incredible base. Coach Weber before me was here for 8 years, built an incredible base of getting our program competitive, kind of right in the middle of the pack in the MIAC, able to compete with anyone. But we knew we had to play our best golf and have another team probably not play their best to win. And we want to get to the point where we have 3 goals as a program. Number one is to grow into the men that God wants us to be. And that's always going to be number one. But number 2 is to create a culture of championship success. And what that means for us is we want our best golf to win every time. And it is golf. You catch a cart path and maybe you lose. So we don't promise championships, but at the same time, we feel like we should be right there and have a team that can compete. When we play our best golf, we should win whatever tournament we're in. And we're on that journey. We've been recruiting really hard. We have an amazing young freshman class that came in this year. We'll have another great one next year. And then we're building on some seniors and some upperclassmen that are really great golfers and really great young men. And so we got a really good formula, and we're going to trust that. We're going to keep getting better. Got a lot of experience under our belts. And yeah, we want to acknowledge that 6th place in the MIAC is not good enough for us. We feel like we want to compete with excellence and create that culture where we win on a consistent basis. And we're going to take what we learned this season. We had a lot of successes as well this season, and we're going to build on them, and we're going to keep getting better.
So how do you come back from a moment like that? What are you talking with the group about in that disappointment? Because that's a tough place to be in. Maybe that's personal and you whatever, but I'm just curious as to how you go back to the frame, you go back to the base. What is it? Because you do want to challenge it. You do want to say, this isn't where we want to be. This is how do we grow in the next 6 months? Because there's some pretty cool things, like the new facility, these sort of things are really creating opportunities for you guys to be that type of program. What do you do day one? And then where do you go in the next 6 months before the spring starts, or 4 months, or whatever it might be?
You guys, it was one of those ministry moments for me as a coach. I think you have everything together. And I tell you what, I walked into our team meeting after our conference championship last week, and I was a little bit down and out, and I was fighting it a little bit because I was pretty disappointed in our finish. And those guys, man, they lifted me up. It was a great meeting. I was so proud of their hearts. We had 5 goals as a team, 3 on the course and 2 off the course. We obviously fell short of our 3 on the course goals, not by much on a couple of them, but we knocked our off the course goals out of the park. And to hear our young men talk about how important that was to them, our 2 off course goals were number 1, to love well on and off the course, and number 2, grow as brothers in Christ. And to hear our young men say, hey, if we get those goals right every semester, we're happy as we can be. We're going to still keep chasing and fighting for those on course goals. So that's number 1. I'm going to sound like a broken record. We keep golf in the right place. We had a successful semester. We had a successful fall season. Absolutely. I believe that with all my heart. It was incredible. But then we take a look at the goals on course, some of our scoring goals that we fell short of, and then we need to get better. And so then we start to break down our games and where we can improve, where we lost shots. We have some specific areas that we definitely did, and we go get better at those areas. And I believe we have the young men that can get better and will. And so we know what we need to do, and we're going to chase those things.
Coach, if our listeners are out there and they're like, man, I got to get involved. I want to help. How do I help the men's golf program? If I'm an alumni, if I'm a parent, if whoever I am, and I'm listening to coach and I'm like, man, I'm in. What do you guys need? What do you need help with? How can people get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking. So we have a mantra here. We say we want to be a D1 golf program at a Christ-centered D3 university. We don't want that to get out of balance. And so what that looks like for us is we're always going to be Christ-centered. We're always going to be D3. We're going to be small, tight-knit, pouring into community. These guys are building each other up as young men and young women on the women's side. So that's number 1. We're never going to forget that we're Bethel University, and that's special. But on the other side, we want to give these young men and young women everything they need to be a Division I type caliber athlete. We don't want them to ever feel second class because they're at Bethel. So of course that comes with funding, that comes with facilities, that comes with opportunities. And so I would say to anyone listening, yeah, absolutely. Anything you can think of that a D1 type golfer would want, we want that here at Bethel. So if you can help with that, that's raising funds or giving support or provide an opportunity for us to go play and be somewhere and support them with gear or equipment, anything like that. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really create a first-class D1 experience for these young men because they deserve it. And they're going to chase after the right things. We want to support them in the sport that they love.
Absolutely, Coach. We are so proud to be on the journey with you and with the program, and whatever we can do, whether that's to magnify the message or just to hold you up in prayer, whatever it is, we are on board. And we thank you so much for joining us and for giving good juice to the community at large that supports Bethel Athletics.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. God bless. Go Royals.
We are now joined by a very special guest, Bethel University Hall of Fame inductee, member, not inductee, member, full-fledged member, Trent Anderson, also women's head golf coach at Bethel University for the last 10 years. Boy, this was supposed to be alumni corner, which I guess it still technically is, but you cover a lot of the spectrum here because you played, you're an alum, you're a coach, and you also have kids that now compete or have competed at Bethel. So I'm excited to have this conversation, but Trent, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here to serve.
That's awesome. Like John said, you were a Hall of Famer. Can you speak to your experience as an athlete briefly at Bethel? You played football.
I did.
A quarterback.
I did. And that's where I was able to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. However, you guys didn't know that I played 3 years of college baseball at Bethel as well. So I came in playing both sports, and that's kind of what drew me to the university in the first place. That was one of the reasons. I really couldn't make up my mind between both, but I love the atmosphere of Bethel and what it stood for, and then being able to play both was kind of an amazing opportunity. So yeah, I played both for 3 years. Then my senior year, I just switched to football.
So what was it like going there to play football? Because at that time, if you're a Bethel University historian of any kind, you know that was right at the time right after Coach Jay came. Things were a little bit rough. Now you had a good senior season, right? And things started to turn. But what was it like, for you to decide, hey, I'm going to go there? I'd love
to tell you a story if you don't mind.
Go for it.
The story comes my freshman year. I was kind of recruited by a guy named Kevin McDonald. He's a great man, good heart. I had no idea what I was getting into as far as how he established his program, but I knew they were a poor team. Maybe one or two games at the most a year. But like I said, the atmosphere was great. And the guys who loved me into the program was amazing. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this a whirl. I kind of gave up some other opportunities and went there. And so, yeah, our first film session after a game was we all were sitting in a large room watching a small TV. And there was guys kind of laughing as the game played out. And I'm like, are you serious? This is how we're going to actually watch film. So there was no teaching. Maybe once in a while he stopped the film, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. And of course we got hammered as a team many times during that year. And we switched offenses, no lie, 3 times in one season. So I'm like, this is a joke. I'd never been a part of a program that was more disappointing. So my dad was pretty steamed up about it. And anyway, that was his last year, McDonald. And then in came Phil Gennaro. And Phil Gennaro was the complete opposite. Talk about having everything planned to a T. It was a fiery personality. And I got to the point where, holy cow, Phil, every time I came to practice, he rode me. And I just was like, this is way beyond what I've ever experienced. But he visited me during the summer, taught me up. And I mean, I learned a ton, but I actually felt like if he rides me this hard at practice, I think I'm going to have to quit. Yeah. And, but right at that day when I felt like, okay, that's it. I said I was going to probably throw in the towel. He put his arm around me. He said, guess what? I'm creating a kind of atmosphere that's super intense so that when you're on the field, it feels like cake. And here you are through all this day in, day out pressure. And he said, I really love you. And I'm like, wow, okay. I needed that right then because I was inches away from exiting. So then that was great. And when he left, I cried because I'm like, no, you can't leave. This is like a complete what I need type of thing. And then in came Steve. So that's kind of how the progression of my life was in football. 3 coaches, 3 years. And then Steve came with a better foundation established thanks to Phil Gennaro.
Awesome. So you then were an All-American your senior year, which is a pretty amazing accomplishment. Part of why they I'm sure inducted you and your contribution on the baseball field as well. What was it like to make the transition back to coaching at Bethel? Because there was a pretty big gap there between when you played and when you coached, and how did the experience, the expectations change in those roughly 20 years?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I coached a lot of high school sports, and I actually coached some at Bethel running backs early in my career. But then I went and worked with Pete Haugen, who is now the Gus Davis, great coach there. He was my roommate. And so he and I went to Washburn and kind of started the program there. He obviously being the head coach, me offensive coordinator, was just kind of a great camaraderie thing. And then, over a stretch of time, I took over the women's program, the golf program, which was kind of unique. I was a pastor at that moment at Eagle Brook. And it was one of those things that I felt like God was just giving me a blessing by, number one, being obedient to actually go to be a pastor at a church when I'm like, what? Why are you choosing me? Which was kind of crazy in itself. But I'm like, well, he's God. So whatever he says, I do. And so I'm Mr. Obedient in that regard, even though I feel ill-equipped. But it was great. That was a great learning experience. And then after 6 years of being a pastor, that opportunity to coach came up, and it actually allowed me to do both pastor and coach, which was weird, but excellent. And they needed somebody kind of on the spot. And so I'm like, I love it. I talked to Beth about it, my wife, and she's like, yeah, I think you could go ahead and do it. We'll sacrifice some time in that regard. And the program was junk when I took it over. Joel Johnson, who's now the new coach at St. Thomas hockey, women's hockey, but he coached at the U. But he was the golf coach at that point when I took it over. So I took over the men and women's program for a couple of years. Then I just switched to men's for the last 10. So I've actually been coaching golf at Bethel for 12. And that was a program that was, a lot like the football program when I dropped in. So I was like, all right, we've been in a culture like this before. I certainly want to take what I experienced and try and transform it, but I'm not God can do a lot of things through somebody who's willing. And so I believe the invitation was by him, and the first 2 or 3 years were really rough, but we grew, and I've just learned to coach a heart and kind of make a kid realize that, you are loved and you have skills and you are created to do something significant. So if I can be an instrument to make you great, then go do it. And that's, so the more positive, I'm like, God made me one of the most positive people on the planet. So that is one of the great things, that when you're in golf, you're up against all kinds of adversity. And so every single time you set foot on the golf course, you could probably like, I quit. This is just ridiculous. I came out here to have fun, and I'm just getting thrashed by this bad shot after this bad shot. So it's just a matter of how to balance that. So mental game is humongous. And so the progression is the team got better. We started adding better players and creating this amazing atmosphere. A couple top-notch players came, and I just believe that was partly my personality, but mostly God just drawing kids and me being a willing, instrument. And then, so we've had All-Americans there. We've had some of the best players in the league. This year, one of our kids won the whole MIAC championship, which we haven't had yet. So God just continues to go beyond what we can ask or imagine, just like it says in Ephesians 3:20. So good stuff.
I was just going to let you go, that you were on a roll. I appreciate it. I was just going to ask you, because it does, when you look back at the history, it looks like there's not much when you kind of first took over. And then about 2014 is when things started to kind of roll, where maybe that was where you started to get a few players and things really started to gel as a program. But also, it seems like right about that time, you kind of focused solely on the women's program, right?
Yep.
What was that? Yep. I mean, just making that transition, I think, is a huge deal, and saying, hey, we're going to commit to this team and this team both having leaders that are going to take it to the next level. What was that like, transitioning to just focusing on one?
Well, Tony Weber was a great assistant coach. He had actually been a alumnus of Bethel himself. And so when he and I were teamed up as head coach, assistant coach, he then 2 years prior to 2014 took on the men's program. And then 2 years later, he won a championship. And then I was building the women's program still with a lot less. And then it was like you're saying, you're contemplating your role as a recruiter / trying to build what you have and get them to believe. And I think that's number one in any sport is, you need talent, but you also need to have kids believing that, hey, we can do this. So a lot of it is you just talk about, hey, here's what I believe we're going to be on pace to do. And I can see us getting there. And we need a few other players. And we had a couple years where we had 2 or 3 players that were good. And if only we had a couple other players. And, you have 4 kids that you count their score and you can play 5. And there was one year where we had 3 kids and just needed 1 more. And then the next year we had 4 kids, and 1 more would have been nice, because then everybody doesn't have to produce their best. You get a little bit of leeway there. And now this year the past year we had basically 5, and this year we've had 5, and it's just been nice. We have 11 players on our team right now, and it's unbelievable for women to have that many good golfers. And what is also exciting is that they just love each other like I love them. And it's not like I'm telling them what to do. They just get it. We've created an amazing culture, just like the football program, which you guys know about. And when you have a culture that automatically is just hardwired in, because you know it is, somebody comes, a recruit comes and like, holy cow, I can see what's happening here. Oh, I want to be a part of that. And so every time I try and bring a recruit, it's like, get them around the players as much as possible so that they can see this is really a real thing. And when they then come, it's almost surprising when they say no to the team, because they come and they're like, this is amazing. And then a lot of times they'll choose a school because I can get a scholarship. And that's rough because you're up against money, which you can't compare or compete with necessarily. But as far as the experience, it's phenomenal. It's incredible golf, really high level. And so, like you said, where has the program gone? Well, the kids have just gotten better and better. And they believe in themselves. They believe they can make it to nationals. They think they should win the conference championship. And that's not what it's only solely about, but they experience the love of their upperclassmen teammates like we have right now. We have 2 seniors, and we had 1 the year before, and just those upperclassmen made the incoming freshmen feel like, wow, we're instantly important. We're a valued commodity. And they'd take them out for things like Elena Zaborniak would take out her teammates that were freshmen and say, hey, it's sophomore Saturdays. I'm going to hang out with you, or freshman Friday. And she just would take them places, and they'd experience that kinship. And they actually say, yeah, we're all sisters. So it's like a big family, just like the football team was when I was there.
That's awesome. And I would imagine that the final role that you have gotten to experience as a parent of Bethel athletes was partially that draw, right? That this is also family. We're not giving our kids to somewhere that they're not going to feel like they belong, and that they're being fed, and that so how has that changed your perspective as a parent of athletes there?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that. I mean, my kids are fierce competitors. Unbelievable. At home, we just get into wars, and it's probably, my wife doesn't compete with us because she's like, I hate it. You guys are just way too competitive, because somebody either quits because they're crying. Tess, a lot of times, is the youngest. She and I were on the same team playing basketball against Trey and Tate, or we'd play football in the yard, wiffle ball, you name it. We're playing, and kids would come from the neighborhood, join the fun. And Tess, being like me, when I was the youngest too in my family, if I lost, I'd get mad, and I'd go in and I'd cry, and my dad would come into my room and say, hey buddy, we can't win all the time. And, we have to give them a chance to win. Otherwise they won't want to play anymore. And so I try to do that back and forth with my own daughter, but she just gets so amped up. And if you've ever watched my kids play, it's at a competitive level like no other. And so sometimes I think they're going to kill other kids on the basketball court because they're that intense. And Tess, even last night, I was watching her soccer game at Stout. I thought she was going to run through kids. Like, if you want to go for that ball, go right ahead. I'm going to just demolish you as I crush the ball at the same time. So yeah, they wanted to play at a high level. And that's one great thing about Bethel is the sports are incredibly high level, and you're in a conference where you've got fierce competition. Some games aren't so fierce because the schools aren't all at that top notch. But so I think, to be honest, Trey wanted to play at a pretty high level, and it just didn't work out with knee injuries, and things didn't allow him to go at that higher level. But when he settled in at Bethel, he was kind of like, well, I wanted to go somewhere, place far away. It's like 15 minutes from our house. And yet he said this has been the greatest thing for him ever, to be there and just build the kind of relationships he has. And so that's ultimately what the kids are coming away with from Bethel, is amazing relationships. Many of them, they met their spouse there. And Tate wasn't even going to play basketball. So imagine that, Tate not playing basketball. And she just came from a defensive minded role in high school. And then she becomes the top scorer in the nation, in the conference. And just to have that happen as a parent, you're like, holy cow, I'm so proud of these guys. I'm so grateful that they could experience a lot of the things that I did, and how it makes them into an amazing person beyond just, without sports, you go into the world with a little different perspective. With sports, you feel like I can navigate territory that is scary because I've done it numerous times and I've survived certain things. So yeah, for me as a parent, I love that they're in sports. I love that they navigate adversity, whether it's injuries or just coaches that are tougher to manage. I mean, like I said, I was about to quit as a sophomore, and they've had tough coaches that aren't easy, and yet that's what life is all about. So thank goodness you get a training ground as a parent to work alongside your kids in the midst of, and you're like, guess what? Yeah, that's hard. And that's what life is going to be like. And you're doing it. You're making it through it. And I'm going to love you in the midst of it every single day. So what a gift to be so close to your kids, watching them play. I can't complain at all.
Coach, you were talking, and the whole time I was just thinking about the women's golf team, your career as an athlete. And then, last 2 weeks ago, we interviewed Greg Peterson, the new athletic director. And he talked about how the athletic department as a whole is kind of on this trajectory up. And I just have this image in my mind of all of the programs going on that uphill battle toward that elite level, that as they're going to compete for championships across the board. And I love that you got to be a part of it. You're giving back and you're coaching and you're giving your gifts away, and then you get to experience it with your kids. And I think, what a better place. What is there a better place to experience high level athletics, a unique niche that says, hey, we're about following Christ and living for him and being close to home? Man, what a gift.
Agreed. I think God is about blessing us. I mean, certainly he wants to. Think of any dad. I mean, are you guys dads yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get it. I mean, you know that when you have a child, you want to just help them accomplish great things. You want them to become who they were wired up to be. It's exciting to see who they're wired up to be as they grow. You're like, oh, I see now why that maybe happened early.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the luxury of being able to be blessed in this capacity is so great. And I thank God daily for the gift that I have through sports and continuing on in a coaching role. Being a teacher, I teach 6th grade students and then I go coach. It's so hard to do both. It's like having 2 full-time jobs during the fall and the spring. So one day I'm hoping that I don't have to burn my candle from both ends every fall and spring, but it's so worth it because the kids that I invest in at the collegiate level, man, they appreciate like no other. And I think that's what you find at Bethel is the kids that you pour into, they don't take it for granted. They know you're pouring time, energy into them, and they could waste it away. And some kids do, but many of them look back and think, man, that changed my life significantly for the days ahead. So yeah, it's a blessing, no doubt about it. And I think for me as a coach, I think about the livelihood of kids and what they experience outside of sport. Because every time you lose a senior, it's probably the hardest thing as a coach. You invest 4 years and you see them develop. And then it's like, well, guess what? I'm not going to see them like I have in the past. And that's probably the hardest thing, because you lose somebody that's you've just poured into. It's like your own kid in a sense, but then you don't see them like your own kids as much after that. So that's a hard transition to make. So that part of it is something that isn't easy.
And I love that because, Coach Jay, give your heart away, give it for free, like you don't get anything in return all the time, right? That's just the nature of this thing. And being able to demonstrate that, knowing that what you know now, right? I have 4 years with them. I'm going to pour into them. I'm going to give them all the kinds, and it's going to hurt like crazy when they're done. And then being the model to say, that's how we're supposed to live. Like, give your heart to this thing that you're going to do someday, and it's going to end, bro. I mean, it's all going to end. Like, be grateful that we get the 4 years, be grateful that we get whatever time we do with them. And no, it's a gift. You're absolutely right.
I think one thing when you just brought that up for me, every day, if you look at, okay, did I do my best today? And at the end, you want God to obviously do the good and faithful servant at the end. But I would say, let's do it every day. I mean, it's like, okay, God, was this my best? I think it was. If not, convict me, let me know where I need to change. And what a better way to live every day. I mean, he knows exactly what we need to do or become. So, it's kind of like Steve cries all the time. And I know I do a lot in my program too. And I think it just shows your heart just gets thrown out there. Like you're saying, I mean, you empty yourself, and to watch the kids become you, it's the greatest thing, because they talk like you. They have, I mean, right now, Elena probably says man more than I do. Like, let's go, man. And she's like, all right, man. It's just constant. Kids' language becomes right out of your mouth. You see it happening, and you're like, wow, these kids are transforming. And so you have to think daily, am I doing what I need to do for them to become who they need to be? And so it's really cool.
I work with other programs, and I tell coaches all the time, when you start hearing your words repeated to you, you're doing something right. Obviously, you are doing something right. MIAC championship in 2019, MIAC champ this year, first time in program history. Congratulations, coach. What a journey you've had serving, being a part of the Bethel community, and we can't wait to see where it goes in the future. Thanks for joining us, for being a part of this journey with us. Glad to have you.
Thank you, guys. It's been a privilege.
We are now joined by a very special guest, current women's golfer at Bethel University, Anna Tollefson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really, really awesome last week and a half or so for you. You etched your name in MIAC history as well as in Royals history, the first ever female to win the MIAC golf championship. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I agree. Hey, incredible stuff, Anna. And, when we were talking to your coach, who's also on this podcast, we said, hey, do you have one of your players who would be cool to talk to? And he said, all of them, but we might as well talk to the champion, right? So take us back. Take us back to the tournament, and if you want to go back to the whole year, go ahead. But specifically the tournament, what was that like? You're a junior now. You've played a few times. You kind of had a few seasons under your belt, and now to go win the whole thing. Obviously, a third place finish as a team, not what you were probably hoping for, but individually, golf is an individual sport and a team sport. So we can celebrate the victory and feel a little disappointed in the team. But tell us a little bit about your experience over this last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the individual and team is certainly an interesting balance. I would say we had a great season leading up to the MIAC. I mean, obviously winning 2 out of the first 4 tournaments was huge, and kind of just seeing, I don't think we also had 5 or 6 PRs as individuals. So just to see everyone individually be able to play so well and have that contribute to the team and be able to see results from that was really exciting. And just the personal growth we've been able to do as a team, bringing in a few freshmen and a sophomore as well. And just having everything come together to be able to play well. And then going into MIAC, we had some ups and downs throughout the season, but just felt confident about our ability to be able to go out and play. And even just thinking about our purpose of going into the tournament wasn't necessarily obviously we want to win the tournament, but ultimately we want to glorify God through what we're doing. So whether we do that with, how we're building up our team throughout the week, or how we're encouraging our playing partners throughout the day, and just being able to glorify God through how we play is just a really incredible opportunity. So that's kind of our mindset going into the tournament. And then I think one of the most special things about this tournament in particular was kind of our warm-ups going in today. It just felt really special about, coming off of last week, being really disappointed in how we finished as a team and some of our team members not playing as well as we would have hoped. Feeling like we put in a lot of good practice in the week before. And we just had a lot of fun on the range, and even just noticing how calm we were and how kind of just the peace the Holy Spirit put over us, and that we were just out there playing for each other and playing to have fun, and knowing that at the end of the day, the Lord knows the results and we don't, and that's all we can do. So, man,
if only I played golf with a similar perspective every time I walked out. It's a really mental game, and to be able to walk onto the range, to walk on the course with a peace, I think one of the gifts of Bethel generally is that foundational understanding, and then to do it with other people and to watch them kind of breathe that into you is really awesome. How's that? You spoke to it a little bit, but what's that team dynamic like in a sport like golf, where you all kind of out there on your own, competing against people on the same hole, but your teammates are out there doing similar work? What's that like? I didn't experience that as an athlete. John was a high school golfer. But that's an interesting dynamic that I'm curious about. Yeah,
it is a very unique dynamic. Even like considering our difference last year was very unique with COVID protocols, that we were all playing together as a team. So we were all in the same group and all able to encourage each other, which was really interesting. So going back to a normal setting this year, our team is so close, and I'm so blessed, and they really are all of my best friends. So I'm so blessed that they've poured so much into me, and that we're able to pour so much into each other and spend so much time together. And then because we've built up those relationships, we just have our trust on the course of we've all put in the work. We're all trying to do our best. And that's all you can do out on the course is do your best and take that walk with the Lord. And at the end, it is an individual sport at the end of the day. So just all you can do is play yourself in the course at that point. So, and hope the results fall at the end of the day. Yeah.
When did you know you were in really good shape and you were probably going to win? Did you think about it at all before, the last hole?
Yeah.
Or when did that start to come into your purview?
I would say I was more focused on the team aspect of it. Obviously, that's still in the back of my mind. And even coming in, I had a 5-stroke lead going into the day. So kind of just setting an individual goal for myself of kind of what I wanted to shoot, and even kind of playing against the girls against me as well, because as a team, we had 9 strokes to make up. So we kind of said, okay, that's, 2 to 3 strokes a girl. So trying to beat the next closest person to me to try and help make up those strokes as a team. But then I think I had a double and a bogey on the back 9. And I knew I had a lead at that point, but I was still a little worried about that and made me a little nervous. So it was nice to get a birdie on 17. And then Anna, one of my other teammates, actually came out back to come and watch me. So to have her kind of see coming in and have Coach Buck walk in with me was a really special experience. So
absolutely. It's so gratifying to know, like, hey, I've done the work. And like we work with teams and we work with coaches and stuff. And we say a lot this time of year, the hay's in the barn. You know what I mean? Like, we've done the work. We've made it to this point. We just got to go out and execute. And then to have that little hiccup, it was like 13, 14, somewhere in there where you made double and go. So like we had that spot where it's like, our thing's gonna unravel, and then to get it back together, to go make a couple pars and find a birdie and really just feel confident in your finish, because you end up winning by 8 strokes. Like, it was never really in doubt.
Yes.
But to feel confident coming out of that is a really cool thing also. So when do you guys get back to work here? Are you guys at the range together, like today, or how does that transition happen now that you guys start thinking about the spring?
Yeah, I don't think so. Coach isn't allowed to have contact with us in terms of golf for a little bit now, I think until February, but we start getting into lifting next week, actually. So we'll start lifting together 3 times a week as a team. And I think we also start lifting with the men's team, which is really fun to do. And then in terms of golf, it's pretty much on your own. That's such a great break for me is at the end of the school day or after a long set of classes is to go out and play a quick 9 holes or hit on the range and do some putting is really fun. Or we're so blessed to have a really incredible golf facility on campus as well, where we have a simulator and we have a putting green. So sometimes we'll meet in there to practice. But yeah, the golf aspect is pretty much on our own, but we're excited to get back together again next week.
Cool. So Anna, one of the things, our goals with this podcast is to shed light on Bethel University athletics as a whole. Tell us a little bit. Obviously, you play high level of golf, and my guess is you would have been able to go play other places. Take us back a few years to why Bethel, and what was that decision process like for you?
Yeah, so I actually found Bethel through like some college golf kind of thing where you can search a bunch of different colleges and a bunch of different requirements or like criteria that you're sort of looking for. And then one of my former math teachers has also gone to Bethel, so I got to ask her a few questions. And then definitely saw a lot of the things I was looking for at Bethel, but I think the deciding factor was just how strong the community is at Bethel. And that was so evident through the golf team. I got to go on a recruiting event here where we stayed overnight, and not only could you see how close the team that I got to meet was to each other and how much they all loved and really cared for each other, but also staying overnight with one of the players and just seeing how much she cared about me. And I wasn't even a part of the team yet, but she cared about who I was and what I wanted to do, and asked me a lot of really intentional questions about my faith that I knew that if I were able to come here, I'd be able to grow so much in my faith and who I was as a person. And that would certainly benefit who I was as a player.
Unbelievable. I love that perspective. I think when we go into who we are and we grow ourselves as people and then get rooted in what really is important, our performance explodes. And so to be able to know that and feel that, like at 17, 18, right, we're just kind of swinging for the fences, right? We're hoping, but to feel that and to know is, I mean, that's just the peace of the Lord in some ways. So,
and along with that, to know at the end of the day that whether I shoot a great score or whether I don't shoot a great score, I'm still going to be loved by my team and still loved by the Lord. And that's so reassuring. So
there's a lot of freedom in that, isn't there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you spending time with us and sharing a little bit. Like we said, an unbelievable accomplishment, the first to ever do it and to write your name in the record book. You know, it never goes away. What a cool accomplishment. So congratulations again. Thanks for coming on. And we wish you nothing but the best come the spring.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.